It is M123 FM. Welcome back in on this Muskallonge Monday. Our historical tour gets underway here at the Lake Superior Overlook at the Muskallonge Lake State Park. This is once a very popular destination here in the Deer Park area. Of course, we welcome in our resident historian, Sterling McGinn. Sterling, thanks for joining us.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about the former Deer Park Life-Saving Station, which is located here down just behind us.
Well, in 1876, there were 4 life-saving stations to be established. One here at Deer Park, one at the Two Heart, one at Chris Point, and the other at Vermilion. And they were built with the same architectural drawings. And in 1876, it opened, and at that time, it was known as the Sucker River Station. And we don't know exactly when it was changed to the Deer Park Station. But it was a 2-story frame building. The one at Vermilion is still standing and was the identical building that was here at Deer Park. The buildings were always kept, everything was whitewashed, the lawns were perfect, everything was spick and span. And there were weekly drills with the buoys and the Lyle gun and purposely capsizing a rowboat to flip it back up on its right side. And yeah, there was a lot of activity. They were the first residents here at Deer Park, and then it wasn't until a little bit later in 1886 that the sawmill was established, and a little lumbering community was established here, having its own post office and school, and no saloons. They were not allowed here. Deer Park was a dry community. Okay. But that didn't stop bootleggers. Yeah. But yeah, there was a lot of history up here. And the life-saving station was operated by the U.S. Life-Saving Service. And then around 1915, the United States Coast Guard took over operations of the life-saving station. Was it a large crew or just a handful of people that had the responsibility of running the station and overlooking the area? It was a large crew. Everybody had their own responsibilities, and the life-saving service uniforms had numbers on the shoulders which designated what rank they were. Okay. Yeah, and night patrols between the life-saving stations were, the guys would walk up and down with a kerosene lamp, and they would go halfway to one station, and the other night watchman would go from the other station. They'd meet halfway, and then they would go back to their own stations. It was a patrol to see if there was anybody in distress out on the lakes. And how long did the life station stay in service here? I believe in the 1940s. Okay. Yeah. And by that time, the Coast Guard had taken over in 1939. There was also the U.S. Lighthouse Service, okay, which operated the lighthouse at Chris Point. And in 1939, the U.S. Coast Guard took over the civilian life-saving, or the Lighthouse Service. So our historical tour of the Muskallonge Lake State Park in the Deer Park area just getting going. We'll be back with you from the old historic sawmill location here at the Muskallonge Lake State Park. With Sterling McGinn, I'm Dan Hardenbrook. It's M123 FM. Sterling and I have made our way over to the day use area here at the Muskallonge Lake State Park, a gathering spot for families who are coming out to enjoy their vacation now, but back in the day, this is quite the hub of activity here at the Muskallonge Lake State Park and Deer Park area. Sterling, tell us a little bit about what this area was back in the old days of the Deer Park area. Well, there was a large sawmill right in this area here, and it was constructed in 1887. A year prior to that, a Muskegon lumberman, Charles Cook, he bought a large tract of land known as the McDonald land, and he decided he was going to put up a sawmill with a capacity of 60,000 board feet a day. And so the mill was constructed in 1887, and it was built on this a piece of land here, which was separated from Lake Superior by a difference of 30 feet. It was 30 feet lower, and all timber all the timber that was cut at the mill to make lumber was shipped out by lumber schooner. And so with having the mill built here, the employees had to have places to live, so a small community started here, and there were boarding houses, several boarding houses. There were barracks buildings for the employees, a post office, a school, a store, butcher shop, barber shop, all the necessities you would need. Of course, as I mentioned earlier, no saloons. The owners of the mills didn't approve of that. So
it was really the beginning of what became Deer Park, and now if you come to the area, you see a store and a couple of cabins and kind of a quiet, peaceful place. But it was quite busy up here at one point in time.
Yeah, it was. And it was interesting because Matt Sorrell, who was one of our first residents of Newberry, had a stage line that would go between Newberry and Deer Park. It was the Deer Park stage. In the wintertime, the sled that he used, it had painted Newberry and Deer Park stage, and they would come out to Deer Park. They would stop at Spring Hill and to let the horses have water, and to have a drink of water themselves, and then they would stop and have lunch at Halfway John McLeod's place at Halfway Lake, and then they would make the journey up here, and takes us what 25 minutes to get up here now, and it was quite a experience for those traveling up here. There was a column in our Newberry News in the old days called the Deer Park Drift that would mention activities and what the people of Deer Park, what they were doing, and how living conditions were, how many kids were in the school, and that type of thing. So yeah, it was an interesting. There's an interesting history up here, and of course we have the picture of the old wooden building near the watchtower of the life-saving station that it says post office, but it was also the school, and there's Alta Ladner was the teacher, and I think there's about 7 kids at that time. But when that picture was taken, that was pretty much the end of the lumbering days up here at Deer Park. The mill would run at night, and they would cut on average 160,000 feet every 24 hours. And there were 8 Houston electric lights in the mill. And then in around 1890, 1891, the mill was sold to Bradley and Hearst. And then they had a railroad firm of Mutart and O'Malley who transported their timber from where they were cutting it to the mill. And then there was a large dock out on Lake Superior that the lumber vessels would come in and take the lumber out. So yeah, a lot of activity up here at one time.
The old sawmill became the hub and really the launching point for historic Deer Park. Sterling, we thank you for taking us on this tour today. More great information coming your way on this historical edition of Muskallonge Monday with M123 FM. Sterling McGinn is our guest on this week's show. And Sterling, let's talk about the end of the Deer Park historical town, so to speak, as things eventually started to wind down up here on the shores of Lake Superior.
In late 1890s, the mill was still operating, the Bradley and Hearst mill, and the firm of Mutart and O'Malley was transporting the logs for them from where they were being cut, and they were delivered and they were dumped into a trestle running into the bay, into the lake, and then, as I mentioned, then the logs were brought into the mill by a chain up into the mill, and they were cut, and then everything was sent out by lumber schooner. But in the late 1890s, the lumbering operations were coming to an end up here. The U.S. Postal Service in 1899 discontinued the Deer Park Post Office, and all mail was to be sent to Newberry. And about 1900, the logging and lumbering ceased operations here, and the equipment was taken out and sold. And the Bradley family moved west to Oregon, and that was pretty much the end of the operations in the small town. In this letter that was written by a employee of Bradley and Hearst, sent a letter to his family in 1891, and it shows, you can see where the the butcher shop was located, the barber shop, and the schoolhouse, and the houses of the employees and families. And there was the boarding houses, the store, and the post office, and so it kind of shows you over in that direction where the town was at one time. But yeah, 1900 was the end of the lumbering operations up here.
Town transitioned really into kind of what is the campground area, the far loops here, and the different areas that we've shown people today. But like you said, once the logging boom kind of started to slow down, the life-saving station kind of transitioned who was supervising that, and really the Coast Guard stepping in. Deer Park kind of settled into what it's become today, a quiet little area with a lot of history here in the northern part of the area.
Yeah, so where we're sitting was with the mill here would have been a noisy spot at one time, and now it's a peaceful park where people can enjoy the beauty of Muskallonge Lake and Lake Superior itself. So,
as you come up and make your visit to the Muskallonge Lake State Park, you can meet with the staff and talk with them. They can point you out in some great areas. The educational guide for the summer, Kaylee Craig, will also be providing guided historical tours as part of the summer event series here at the Muskallonge Lake State Park. You can stay up to date with those programs and the schedule of events, including special rock walks, different educational programs for kids and families on the Muskallonge Lake State Park Facebook page. And as always, stay up to date with us here on our weekly summer park series. It's brought to you by Renze Power Sports of Newberry and Helen Newberry Joy Hospital and Healthcare Center. With Sterling McGinn, I'm Dan Hardenbrook. This is your latest Muskallonge Monday with M123 FM.